Alex. You'll be proud of me. I watched the second half of the Timbers draw with the Galaxy yesterday. Little MLS action. So I was under the impression that my membership to Apple TV, I knew that they carried MLS, but I
Right.
thought you had to buy the add-on to get it. And to get all the games you do, but to get some games you don't. So turned out Portland was on yesterday, and I turned it on, and they were up 1-0, and gave up the tying goal in the 81st minute, and they just couldn't do anything. And of course, I know nothing about what's going on in the standings really, and so I was like, well, it's the Galaxy. They're usually good. No, they're the worst team in the West,
It's early.
and we gave up their first point of the year. So
Well, heyo. I
yeah,
mean, I'll
boom.
tell you what. MLS has done one thing right in terms of their stadiums are packed. I mean, the Timbers, as you know, they get the tifos going, which for the uneducated soccer fan out there, it's those big old flyers that I'm constantly going. How are fans seeing through those and the flag waving in Germany? Big flag wavers out in the
Hmm.
Bundesliga. I don't know if I would enjoy a soccer match with the diehard like ultra fans. I think I'd want to be sitting on the sides with my cup of coffee, like enjoying the match, because there's so much action going on the sidelines before those games and during.
I have sat. So I think I've been to probably five Timbers matches. And as we've kind of lightly discussed, I've sat in the Timbers Army section, which really isn't a great. It's a fan experience there. It's not as good to watch the match from there because you're on one end of the field, right?
You're there to cheer
Um,
and make a
you're
whole
there.
bunch of ruckus.
It's more about the fan experience and just being part of that community, which admittedly I'm not. And so my preference is really to be able to watch the game. And so I've sat high above, up in like the box seats. That's fun for a different reason. But sitting midfield, first row, that's by far the best, right above the benches, best experience I've had. Um, I would say it's up there with other sports experiences that I've had because you're just right there and you can just see everything as it happens. And then in MLS, that cost the cost to get that experience is not bad. I mean, it's not
No,
like
it's
what you would
barrier entry
pay.
is great.
Yeah, it's not like what you would pay 50-yard line for front row for an NFL game or something like that. So
I mean,
yeah.
500 level seats at Broncos games are still buck 50, 200 a pop. And that's upper nose level, like touching the 5,800 altitude, 5,800 feet, even higher than a mile above sea level. I definitely think it's an experience that everyone needs to attend. A soccer match is unlike other. Take in, I know a lot of stadiums do a march to the field as well, which if you haven't partaken in that, like that just gets all the kids amped up as you're walking into the stadium singing your team songs, making fun of the other team, just having a great time before you even get inside the stadium. It's
I've read about the soccer hooligan experience.
Sure.
As I'm sure you could guess, I've not participated in it.
Well, when I
But
come up there for a match,
it's
we'll
just
participate
one
in
of
it.
those. It is one of those things though that to me is just cool about soccer/football specifically. That is, it's unique to those sports. Other sports, you don't really see the fights and the crazy stuff break out until after a win or something like that. So
Well, I'm excited for our next talk about MLS because we have Timbers Rapids coming up. So can actually talk about
what
some
day
of
is
our
that?
hometown. I was just trying to pull that up actually. I know that there's a little bit of a break coming up in terms of some national
You guys,
team things
you
that are
guys are
going
doing
on.
well, right?
Undefeated. I think it's three ties and one win. Really building off our first time going to the playoffs in a long time. We won the MLS Cup as a wild card, just ran through the gauntlet. The MLS tournament per se is very different than not only what they do overseas, but even what we have here for our four major sports. Definitely something we'll want to dive into as we get farther along in the season. So 22nd of March, so 5 days from now.
Nice. Yeah, we'll watch that.
Yeah, let's take a
We'll
look at
uh
that match.
we'll do a yeah, we'll do a maybe yeah, maybe we'll do a breakdown on that one for our next show. That'll be fun.
Absolutely. I think the more we
So
can arm our listener with what's going on. And there's a lot in the MLS.
As I mentioned, and so just we've touched on this before, but this show, this podcast is really about trying to bring the minutia and the nuance of sports into the living rooms of people who are too busy to really pay the amount of attention that super fans can pay. But of course, I am being our fan this week, and I have no idea what's going on in the sports world outside of baseball and March Madness. So what else is going on outside of those two arenas right now?
Oh boy, things are heating up in the NBA. About 15, 16 games to go for each team. You have a team like the Nuggets here, hometown team, looking to bounce back and make another run for an NBA title. They split with OKC in a home and home in Oklahoma City, and then turn around and lose to the Washington Wizards. Just a shocking display of basketball, and not really sure what's going to happen in the NBA landscape. You have Golden State, which is just on a tear ever since Jimmy Butler was traded, demanded a trade out of the Miami Heat to join Steph Curry and the gang, and they've just been on a tear. Golden State is going to quickly find themselves in the top six, if not higher, as they continue to climb. The Lakers have come back down to earth with Doncic having to sit on the bench with his calf injury. LeBron going home to nurse his ailing injuries, has some knee injuries, some shoulder issues, so he's been back in LA. And you just have these two, as we call them, flyover cities that just continue to really take over the NBA landscape. So don't sit tight. Enjoy what Oklahoma City's doing, 50-win season. Enjoy what the Celtics are doing. There's some good basketball to come. I still don't know how I feel. I even forgot about them. Cleveland Cavaliers, Josh, top of the Eastern Conference, still running away with it. 7.5 game lead over number two. Oklahoma City, 13 games above Houston and Denver. So really running away with the top of their leagues. But will be interesting to see how the play-in tournament turns out. I know we've had some upsets in the past. I know we touched on it earlier, but with basketball and March Madness, Josh, like, how do you feel about that play-in tournament? How do you feel about a majority of the teams being able to get into the tournament, maybe get hot at the right time? And do they really even play a factor when they're going up against the number one and number two teams in their respective conference?
Well, I mean, we'll talk a lot more about this when we look at our statistical breakdown. But yeah, I mean, I think certainly the 16 play-ins, it's like, congratulations, you made the postseason. You made the dance. Good for you. Now you get to be cannon fodder for a juggernaut. We know that only, and I don't know this offhand, but only 16 seeds have ever beaten a 1 seed, and that's only relatively recently that has happened. And I don't think either of those were play-in teams. I'm not sure on that though. I could be wrong. So I mean, I think with the 16s, meh. But when you look at the 11 play-in, well, 11s actually win over the 6 like 50% of the time. So
it's
that's
the
like
most common upset
since
the tournament came out.
Or one of the most common upsets, at least in the last decade. So those teams, I think, and a lot of times what you see with that 11 seed is a major conference team that maybe finished, 5th or 6th in their conference. And maybe they just got hot toward the end. And so you just got to watch out, because the selection committee they don't reward a team for just how well they're playing lately, right? I mean, it's still the body of work. You can really boost your body of work, or you can really go from, being on the bubble or out before your conference tournament, and then you go on a run and you win your conference tournament. Obviously, it pushes you up, but usually those 11s are like a Syracuse. Syracuse has won in that 11/6 multiple times in the last decade. And so that one, yeah, those teams can make a difference in the tournament, but the 16s not so much. Although we love to see it. I mean, when that finally happened, when was it UMBC? I think that was the first one to do it. When they finally
number one
that
overall
against the one, that was like, Yeah, that was like the moment of our lifetimes in college basketball, especially for March Madness. So it's like you want that, but again, we'll talk more about why it's probably not a good idea to project that that's what's going to happen. But um, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
Stay stay
I do
tuned to the
like
end.
it. I think when you look at the fact that I mean you're only talking about 30 teams in the NBA. I think having the majority of the teams at least have an opportunity to get in, I think it's good. Um,
Sure.
I think it's good for sure. You know, when you look at March Madness, it's just this giant behemoth of a league because you got 300 plus teams that are contending for that championship.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different deal.
Yeah.
So, but
Excited to talk about that at the end. We'll help you get ready for your bracket pools. I'm sure you've had emails and you're not sure if you want to be a part of them. A proponent of joining those leagues. Hop in, have a good time. If you haven't watched college basketball, or as my grandma told us last night in our family chat, I haven't kept up enough to have a chance. And I said, you're probably going to win. So I actually don't want you to join. I want an opportunity this year, grandma.
we're gonna
So
talk. Yeah, we're gonna talk about how to go from zero to perfect bracket, um, meaning watching no basketball all year and just making sure that you're making smart picks based on seedings and such. So I have a little bit of a formula that I kind of worked out. Admittedly, I haven't tested it out. We'll see how I do this year. But it in theory, it's good science, and it should at least help you be competitive. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
also do want to touch on hockey as well. Not only NHL, which is very much in that same NBA realm of being, within every team about 17 to 14 games left in the season, but college hockey. We have the Frozen Four coming up. That just was settled in the NCHC, one of the just prolific hockey leagues in all of college hockey. You're really seeing a lot of other teams come to the forefront, which has been nice. DU, obviously hometown team for myself is reigning defending champions. They're going up against Arizona State in the Frozen Four, so number 2 seed and number 3 seed going at it. Something interesting there: Arizona State was a club team just 3 years ago. So watching their rise and watching hockey really start to come up across the U.S. has been really exciting to see teams be really competitive with one another. So you have your blue bloods in hockey, which is going to be your Wisconsins, Ohio State, Michigan, DU, Quinnipiac, just North Dakota, the big hockey programs in typically hockey locations in, the upper Northwest, North and East. You're starting to see a team like Arizona State be in the running, and if they have a good showing here at the Frozen Face-Off tournament, and then figure out where they land for the NCAA tournament. On the NHL side, it's really starting to heat up. All the rosters are locked in now, so trade deadline has passed. You have guys such as Brad Marchand, who has always been a Boston Bruin through and through, going to arch rival Florida Panthers. So he's hurt right now. Will be real interesting to see how many games he can get in before the end of the season, before the playoffs start. In the NHL side, the East is going to be, just an absolute interesting scenario to see who pops through. You have one team that really stands out in terms of the Florida Panthers. You have the Washington Capitals, which have been driven by Ovechkin in a quiet 96 points, and then just a bunch of other teams that are really fighting for position to figure out who's going to come out of the East. In the West, it's been your just typical top six: Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado in the Central, Vegas, Edmonton, and the Kings in the Pacific. The little bit of a battle for the wild card between the Canucks, Flames, Wild. Still a lot to play for in terms of who's going to be that second wild card team. Calgary, Vancouver at 73 points, Calgary at 71 points, and even the Blues, fighting and clawing their way with a 7-2-1 record in their last 10 at 73 points. So really anyone's game, a lot of battles for home ice and seeding still to come. And it's just going to be a really exciting spring and coming into the summer here as NBA and NHL look to really crank up the heat into playoff season.
So here's a question as a hockey noob, which of course I am. If I were going to turned on a hockey game this week. As a potential hockey fan who is not into hockey currently, what would be the game that you would want me to watch?
Oh, I mean, I hate to keep being a homer, but if you want to see high flying action, you have the Avalanche at the Toronto Maple Leafs coming up on Wednesday. It's a really great time period as well. It starts at 5 o'clock Mountain, so 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. So it's at that time where you can actually see the whole game, get it in before you start your nighttime routine, maybe catch it on your phone. It is a nationally televised game on TNT. You're going to see, Mitch Marner out there. Nathan McKinnon, who's just became the 100th NHL player to hit 1,000 points. And for a player to hit 100 points with still 14 games to go is pretty big in the NHL. Back when we were growing up, Josh, you were seeing guys 140, 150, even 160 points per season. The way goalies are now, it's amazing how they even score a goal. A little dad moment, if you will. One of my all-time favorite commercials is when they have that walrus in goal and they're throwing him the fish that's like, "Hey, Chucky, good save." And the other team goes up to the ref and he's like, "It's a walrus. What are you going to, this is ridiculous." I love that commercial. I make my kids watch it every time it comes on the TV because it would be hilarious. The goalies look like walruses in there. Like, how the heck do you score on them?
They look like walruses or like, they are the supreme defender, right, on the ice. So like,
Sure.
they look like they're ready to defend something serious.
Oh, they're fierce and they're not going to move.
Like,
and if they get moving, you better watch out. So yeah, you've got Avs, Maple Leafs on Wednesday, and that's a perfect appetizer to the last of the first four games as well before the madness gets going on Thursday morning.
sweet. Well, perhaps I will actually check out some NHL hockey this week. Oh boy! So without further ado, let's get into that baseball talk here. So last week we talked about the American League. We went through Rookie of the Year projections for each team, breakout star projections for each team. Then we talked about projected standings and how we feel about projections and et cetera, et cetera. As a National League fan, albeit a Rockies fan, Alex is going to lead our charge through the National League today. Alex, why don't you just take it away?
Yeah, so National League, definitely exciting, and I think Josh and I really play off each other well with the Cleveland Guardians near and dear to your heart, and my closet Rockies jerseys that have sat lonely in my closet as I continue my disdain for Rockies management and ownership as we continue to just blame the system. Just this week, the wonderful owner Dick Monfort of the Colorado Rockies blamed the Los Angeles Dodgers for ruining baseball. This coming from a baseball owner that sells out a majority of his games because of the location of the ballpark. A majority of our promotional calendar is based upon the opponent that's coming to town and not the players in our own dugout. A system where we have continued to put an emphasis on machines and how to hit curveballs in Colorado, but not how to pitch curveballs in Colorado. An investment in, I'm sorry, am I going on too long? Let's get into the NL. Let's get into the NL, folks. With that prelude, I'm going to start with the NL Central. NL Central, very, very interesting division. I feel a division that continues to move up and down. A lot of changes throughout. But want to start with the Cincinnati Reds. So Cincinnati Reds, let's look at the rookie of the year candidate, rookie of the team. I've got Rhett Lauder, a 2-2 record, 1.17 ERA, in 6 starts, has above average command and proved he could really hang in the MLB. Really thought that he could be, one of those potential rookies that steps up for this team and has a good showing this year.
That's we're going to start 1 for 1 on this particular edition because that is who I have for the Reds as well. Although I will say it was very tough to pick somebody for them because they've had so much of their their prospect talent come up in the last couple of years. So guys like Elly De La Cruz, obviously he's established. Matt McLain, established, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I like that pick. I think, right now he's not projecting to be in the starting rotation, but he certainly has a shot with an injury, and he's projected to get some spot starts this year. And as we know, with the opportunity, you just never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I like the Cincinnati team as well. They're young. Elly De La Cruz is just such a joy to watch. He doesn't look like he should be a baseball player. Like to me, he screams basketball, or just how tall he is. But the athleticism, he actually was on my fantasy team. Loved him. And yeah, this team has a lot to look forward to, which leads me to, who is going to be kind of their first all-star, first-time all-star that you're looking towards on the Cincinnati Reds. I've got Matt McLain. He's been out since 2023. Shoulder injury, or excuse me, shoulder surgery, oblique issues surfaced after he was working with his swing and really went into the lab and started to try to find some more power. If he can turn that into more power and consistency, he's already shown that he can find the sweet spot in at bats, above average speed, and that pairing with Elly De La Cruz up the middle, prime spot for an all-star nod.
Boy, we are on the money so far. We'll see how long this lasts. I've got Matt McLain too. I'm a big Matt McLain fan. He's going to be the everyday second baseman for the Reds this year. He's just got to stay healthy. As you mentioned, he had his first season in 2023 cut short, and then he missed all of last year. But he hit 290 over 89 games, got hurt. He's just that straw that stirs the drink kind of guy, spark plug kind of guy, undersized, but just can do everything. He's not overly fast. He's quick. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he'll hit some home runs. He's just going to kind of do everything for you. So I just a huge Matt McLain fan, but it's hard with that team because they've got a guy like Elly De La Cruz. So it's hard to throw, a term like straw that stirs the drink around when your team's got a guy like that who really, let's be honest, I mean, he's the guy. But yeah, big fan. Would have been Elly. Elly was an all-star last year though. So
yeah, talented team. Bonus points this week if you can put a post on our Facebook page. You're blocking the TV on how many times you used in business meetings straw that stirred the drink. I think you should throw that into with your coworkers and just see what the reaction is.
PowerPoint presentation. Do they still do those? It's been a while since I've been in an office setting. But
Google Sheets presentations. We got to step
Google
up our
Sheets.
game. Move it around. Speaking of moving around, let's move on to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Definitely a hot up and coming team. Paul Skeens really driving the ship over in Pittsburgh, will be a big contributor to what this team does in the next, really 2 to 5 seasons. How are they going to build around him to make sure that he's a piece that wants to stay on a contract that is healthy and that they're able to grow that team around and get butts in the seats, so to speak. Key rookie for this team, I went with Bubba Chandler. Can touch 100 miles per hour. I feel like any pitcher that can touch 100 is really going to put themselves in a spot to be productive in an MLB uniform. Went from AA to AAA and saw his walk rate go down and his K rate go up. Both metrics that are really going to lead to him having a good chance to be a key contributor to the squad.
Big fan of Bubba Chandler. I will diverge, but that's a great pick. I've got another starting pitcher prospect, Braxton Ashcraft, sorry. He, there aren't a lot of great options with Pittsburgh either. They don't have another, Paul Skeens waiting in the wings to blow the league away as a rookie. But, this guy's going to make his MLB debut this year at some point, and great slider, good velo, and in the minors last year, 2.84 ERA and 16 appearances, 14 starts. So I'm going to go with him, but I should preface this with some of these teams. I don't think any of these guys are going to be really high on the overall rookie of the year rankings, but you never know.
Yeah, some of these guys, rookie of their team, will be a good enough achievement for them. You'll hear some familiar names that we're looking at for rookie of the year candidates across the league. First time All Star for the Pirates, I'm going O'Neal Cruz. Power and speed in center field are going to allow him to really hone in his hitting craft. To be in the If he's able to put up a 2020 type projection and start, put him in the top six of center fielders. So moving him to center field where he can, he really struggled in the infield, had a lot of errors, and it contributed him to not being able to focus as much on the hitting side. And then was showing that, he can be a force in center field and allow those hitting numbers to really contribute where you typically don't see them in that position.
Yeah, I mean, we're at this point, we're 3 out of 4 because I've got O'Neal Cruz as well. And I don't think it's hard to pick him here because, I mean, you look back, I think 2021 was his rookie year. Um, and he was flashing as, this guy that just had elite exit velocity, cannon for an arm, was throwing the ball across the diamond at 107 or whatever, and has great speed in addition to the fact that he's 6'7". He's a monster athlete, right? He is a lot like Elly De La Cruz. He's just a little taller. So, but we finally got to see what he could do in a full season last year. He played in 146 games. Again, great speed, cannon for an arm, exit velo. He strikes out a little bit too much. Striking out about 1 in 3 at bats. If he can put it all together this year, like you said, I mean, there's just no doubt that he's more than an all-star. Right. I mean, this is a budding superstar in O'Neal Cruz. They need him to put it together and stay healthy.
Yeah, 2020 upside. Also, 20 home runs, 20 steals is what we're talking there. So get on the base paths. Let's get that. Maybe 30 is an attainable number in terms of steals. Let that power come. Knows he has it. Put in the bleachers. Moving on. Continuing our journey through the NL Central, looking at the Milwaukee Brewers, one of those teams where we are who they thought they were, or who the heck is this team? Not really sure where if anyone can project where they're going to end up in the standings, like go down to Vegas, open up your app, download one of the major sports books and put some money down. There always seem to be that team where you just can't put a finger on them. Not really sure if they're going to show up, but they always seem to outpace what you think they will be. I think key rookie Jacob Misiorowski can touch 100. Definitely has some command issues that he needs to work out in the minors, but a potential role as being the next closer for an organization that continues to just find people that can lock down games and come in and shut it down.
Yep. That's not who I had, but that's a fantastic pick. And you're right about the growing closing pitchers. Devin Williams. Oof, boy, the Yankees got a good one there. I've got Caleb Durbin. And I'll preface this for the third time that I don't think there's a great option for a rookie of the year candidate on this team. This is another one of those teams that they brought up a lot of their or their prospect talent over the last couple seasons, and so those guys aren't eligible. But the youth that they're ready to give a shot right now just doesn't come close to living up to that. Durbin is flexible. He's going to play multiple positions, can play, second, third, corner outfield spots. He's really undersized, but he gets on base, and so right now he's projected as a platoon guy, but sometimes those platoon guys, if they can just be decent against the other side, they get their shot, and before you know it, they're an everyday player. So you never know.
Yeah, definitely like him in the rookie mix for Milwaukee as things happen. Looking at first-time All-Stars for the Milwaukee Brewers, looking at Jackson Chourio. Bat 275 last year, 21 dingers, 79 runs batted in, and really primed for a breakout campaign in center field. A lot of the scouting reports that I read on him is that he just sees the ball above average. He's able to see that pitch come out of the hand and really put the ball in play, but still has power and the ability to be in the middle of the lineup. Really poised for that breakout campaign and to get that All-Star nod.
Well, yeah, let's consider that Mr. Chourio was 20 years old all of last season. So he's a baby. So I feel like you took the low-hanging fruit on that one, and he probably is the most likely first time All-Star on this team because he's just a good all-around player. But I went out on a limb. I think Garrett Mitchell is going to be healthy in 2025 and is going to blow away all of the projections. He's going to get back to what they thought he could be a couple years back when he was still a prospect. I think he's 25 home run guy, 25 stolen base guy, good defensive player in the outfield, and a first-time All-Star this year.
I like to bookend that. They are who they thought we were, and he is who we might think he will be. So, yeah, Milwaukee, always a fun team to watch, fun ballpark. Moving on, Chicago Cubs. Projected NL Central winner in some categories. We'll take a look at that here once we wind up all of our rookies and first-time All-Stars. But when you look at the Chicago Cubs, I look at a key rookie in Matt Shaw. Their last third baseman rookie was a guy by the name of Chris Bryant, whom used to like, and now has just living out his twilight years as an injured reserve player on my Colorado Rockies. We'll get there. One of 4 20-30 players in the minors. Again, that's 20 home runs. I believe it was 21 home runs and 31 steals in the minors last year. And Team USA's best hitter at their last international tournament. So look for Matt Shaw to be, key third baseman for the Chicago Cubs.
I'm going to go with a different infielder who can also play a bit of third base, and that's Gage Workman. Elite defensively at third base. Has a little bit of power. He has struggled a bit with the strikeout, but in spring this year, he's hit 424. So, again, that's spring. Doesn't mean everything, but they have told him that he's going to be traveling to Tokyo for the Dodgers series. So I think he's going to be making his major league debut this year, and he'll be in the mix.
Awesome. Yeah, great pick. Getting over to Tokyo. We'll see how if he finds the diamond here. Looking at first-time All-Stars for the Chicago Cubs, Nico Hoerner, second baseman, bat 273, 7 home runs, and 48 ribbies last year. Recovering from elbow surgery, hoping to be back at the end of March to get going here for the Cubs as they, get into the meat of the early part of the season. But really looking for him as being my projected first-time All-Star.
Nico Hoerner, another one of those guys I'm a huge fan of because he's a lot like your Matt McLain, right? He's a second baseman who can play. I mean, he can play everywhere. He's got good speed, but he gets hurt because he plays too hard. That just time and time again, the guy can't stay healthy. And it's because he just puts his body on the line at a level that most players won't. That said, I've got PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong. Need him to hit a little bit more for the Cubbies, but defensively, this is a dude who can go get it, man. I mean, and a little trivia tidbit for you. Some people may know this already, but remember the movie Little Big League about the Minnesota Twins?
Of course.
PCA's actual mom in real life was Billy Haywood's mom in that movie.
Wow. There you go. There's some knowledge.
Crazy, right? It's crazy. To me, it's crazy, but
it's kind of random, actually.
Right? Yeah,
serendipity.
That's the only time I ever rooted for the Twins was in that movie.
Go Cubs, go! Good luck to you, Jesse and Batesy, this year. Let's move on to the St. Louis Cardinals. One of my favorite teams to just not understand why they continue to go after it and just refuse to rebuild because they have some names and some starters and not really sure that they're ready to give in to a full rebuild. But let's look at their key rookie. I have Quinn Matthews, reigning minor league pitcher of the year. He's a lefty with velocity, which if you dads know and moms out there, if your kid's in the backyard throwing the old pigskin or cowhide around, put it in his left arm. See what happens. Change that arm angle. Lefties are good. Needs to break through some of the old guard to really get a good look this season. So that's kind of what I lean into with the St. Louis team. They typically hang on to guys past their prime and let them ride out their career. He's going to have to break through some of that noise to get that rookie recognition.
I've got another potential starting pitcher in Michael McGreevy. In 4 appearances and 3 starts in 2024, had a 1.96 ERA. Super small sample size, of course, but if he can settle in as a a 3 to 4 ERA guy and fit into that rotation, it's got some potential there.
Like it. I like it. First time All-Star for the St. Louis Cardinals, Mason Wynn. Batting 267, 15 home runs, 57 RBIs. Key point here is he's a fan favorite. It is an all-star vote. I remember going to the park, with my family back in the day. Do you remember the little punch cards they had? I used to
Hmm.
love punching the little circles out. That was my favorite thing to do. That every team encouraging you to grab a stack of 10 and just punching them out at elementary school in the recess
Hmm.
courts and doing that. So I feel like having that fan favorite behind him, an arm that's an absolute cannon, and a bat that's finding its way in the league. If he gets off to a hot start, can find himself high up on the All-Star voting.
Elite athletically, Mason Wynn. A lot of times when you look at guys that play shortstop, and he came up as a, a pitcher shortstop combo. They weren't sure if he was going to be a pitcher or a shortstop. Um, and so it was relatively recently, the last couple of years, where he started to focus on shortstop, and he's got a pitcher arm. I mean, when he's firing the ball over to first base, watch out. That said, this is another one where you've picked the guy that is probably the clear favorite to be the first time All Star. I've been a big fan of Jordan Walker, and he has struggled, and I think he just was brought up far too soon a few years back, and he's still just 22 years old, still a baby. He's a monster. He's like 6'5", 240 pounds. They moved him to the outfield. He's a natural third baseman. So I think he's just struggled with the pressure of being at the big league level maybe a little too soon and having to change positions and all that. And there was a time where it looked like the Cardinals might give up on him and just move on from him altogether. But he's projecting to be in their everyday lineup again this year, and he can hit. He's the guy that at every level is hit for average. I think he can be a real superstar player. But it's probably going to have to start to happen this year. Otherwise, I would guess that this might be, unfortunately, this might be his last chance with the Cardinals to really cement his spot, because they do have a pretty rich farm system. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I,
But
I think
I've got Jordan Walker.
I think Jordan Walker is a perfect breakout candidate. Really hoping for him to put together and have a good year. And that's your NL Central. So there are your rookies and first time All Stars. We'll get into a little bit of a breakdown in terms of projections and where we see the standings lining up for the NL Central. Moving on to the NL West, the Wild West, starting with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Coming off a season in which they outscored every single team in baseball and just fell short of a wild card via a tiebreaker. They're projected as an NL wild card this year. When you look at a team that has this much talent around it and is really building up to make another postseason run, tough to find some rookies that are going to make and crack the major league and really make an impact. I went with Yolbert Diaz, 1-1 last year in the upper levels, minors, 3.81 ERA, 19 strikeouts. He's a right-hander, has potential breakout possibilities, but again, one of those rookies that's really going to have to find his way through injuries and a really strong performance to make the squad.
You love to pick the pitchers, and I always seem to just sleep on the pitchers. But I'm going to go with Jordan Lawler at shortstop. They love Geraldo Perdomo there, but and Perdomo has improved offensively. He's a good defender. He's got good speed, but Lawler is the guy that they want to be their future shortstop. And so if he ends up playing a lot this year, I think he's going to become their guy, and he's just got the capability of being an all around good player.
Yeah, great selection. First time All Star Gabriel Moreno. Two bats, 266, 5 home runs, 45 RBIs. Those numbers are a little shy on the home run and RBI front. Needs to stay healthy. Battled through some injuries, being able to get those plate appearances up. But he's one of those players in the catcher position that, with a healthy position, can really make some noise and is going to be pivotal to the Diamondbacks making another postseason run.
That's my guy. And you really always have to love a catcher who is gold glove caliber on defense, who can also really hit above 250. If you've got a catcher in your lineup who's going to hit 250 or better and play gold glove defense, which, he was a gold glover in 2023, might have been last year, just shortened by injury. He could turn into the best catcher in the league before too long if he continues to grow, for sure. And I think last year could have been his all-star debut if he had been healthy. So I really am looking for him this year.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Colorado Rockies. Picked by most to be, if not the worst, the second worst team in all of baseball. So a plethora of options to choose from for this squad. Key rookie, I'm looking at Chase Dollander. We've talked a lot about him here in Colorado for a long time. He's touted as the best pitching prospect that the Rockies have ever had come through the system. Surprisingly, one of our prospects that we've actually kept through the system. 6-2 last season, 2.59 ERA in the minors. Really has that opportunity to get some big league starts and figure out, where he's going to end up. He's going to have a rocky season, no pun intended, pitching at altitude, pitching at a ballpark that gives up a lot of runs, a lot of extra base hits. How he's able to handle that and continue his journey through the MLB and take the bumps and bruises. And if we can find a pitcher that can learn to pitch at altitude and pitch ground balls and find a way to keep the ball in the park, holy cow, we might be onto something. So high hopes for Chase Dollander this year.
Yeah, we need a meat grinder gif or something to just illustrate what things might look like for Mr. Dollander this year from the rock pile. I'm going to go with Zach Veen, highly touted outfield prospect. Zero MLB experience at this point coming into the year, is expected to make his MLB debut at some point, whether it happens right away to start the year or later on. And he doesn't have a superstar to dethrone in order to get everyday playing time. That's what I'm really looking at. Because there's one superstar in the outfield in Colorado, and we know who that is. So
yeah, really great point there. I got to factor that in next rookie go around in 2026. First time All-Star for the Colorado Rockies, Ezequiel Tovar, bat 269 average last year, 26 home runs, 78 RBIs, middle infielder. Shortstop's going to be a tough position to get that All-Star nod, but he's a fan favorite. He's one of those guys that is fun to watch, that in other opposing ballparks will have the fans going, who is that guy in the middle infield? Mainly because he plays on just a horrific team that is going to, going to lose 100 games again. It's really going to be him staying in tune, maybe getting the Rockies off to a hot start. We've always been a good home team, so it's going to be making those eye-catching plays in the defense and opposing parks and riding some of that momentum to a hopeful first-time All-Star.
Yeah, I'm a big Ezequiel Tovar fan, but I always lean outfield as a former outfielder myself. And Brenton Doyle, the thing I love about him is he came up as a defensive specialist, and then last year, after another Gold Glove campaign in center field, he's got two of them in his first two seasons. He improved at the plate a lot. He went from 203 in 2023 to 260 in 2024. Hit 23 home runs, drove in 82, stole 30 bases. Guy can fly out there. Can go get it in center field. I think, one of, if not the best center fielder in the league right now. So somehow, probably because he's a Rocky, He didn't manage to make the All-Star game last year, but I think he deserved to be in the conversation, and I think he will be this year.
The space he has to cover out in center field at Coors Field is vast as well. So watching him patrol, it's definitely an exciting endeavor, and hopeful that we can start to grow here in the Great Rocky Mountains. Next, just the powerhouse. Josh, this was a team when I was doing research and looking at all these players. Los Angeles Dodgers. You're going, he's a rookie? Okay, awesome. They're going to be good for a long time. Key rookie for the Los Angeles Dodgers this year. I'm looking at right-hander Roki Sasaki. I put the rich get richer. Will be the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. He's 23 years old from Japan. 2.02 ERA over in Japan, a 30-15 overall record. I think you look at signing a guy for 325 million. There's high expectations for you to do big things. Or excuse me, I'm mixing up their two players. You're looking at just a favorite that is going to command big money for the Dodgers as he continues to grow through the system.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with an Asian of another persuasion, Hae-Sung Kim, not the brother of Hae-Sung Kim, by the way. You would think they have very similar sounding names. You would think maybe they were related. They're not. They did play together in the KBO, though. He's kind of an all-around question mark for them as a middle infielder. And he's projecting to start at the AAA level, and I think it's just because they're a little crowded there with veterans. But I just don't think he's going to stay there very long because injuries happen, and it's only going to take a couple of them for him to be at the big league level. He hits well for average. His power and defense, maybe question marks. When you look at the projections, there are people that think that this guy can play really well defensively, and there are guys that are like, he's going to be a minus WAR defender. We'll see this year. But that's my pick. Although, again, I will give you the nod as the guy that picked the better pick in this case.
That's the glory of going first, and knowing I was presenting the NL is I said, hey, I don't have to worry. I'm going to go with my guy. First time All-Star, Los Angeles Dodgers. That's Yamamoto, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Signed for $325 million, most ever for a pitcher. Really flashed all-star last year. And just see this right-hander is making a big time step forward. 7-2 record, 3.0 ERA, but 105 strikeouts as a rookie.
Yeah, that's my guy as well. Projects to head their starting rotation this year. Was really good last year in his rookie campaign. Even with missing 3 months with the strained rotator cuff. So if he's healthy this year, yeah, he's one of the better starting pitchers in the National League West and the league, frankly.
All right, let's move on from the Dodgers. We will hear from them enough. You will see their logo enough. It's going to be never ending coming up here in summer as they chase, repeating for World Series champs.
Boilerplate Dodger talk, and we skipped it. Okay, we're good.
San Diego Padres. Another one of those teams that really loaded up and felt like they were going to make a run at the Dodgers, and they just, Dodgers continue to load up north of them there in California. I'm looking at key rookie Tirso Ornelas. Could get some time in the outfield corners. He bat 289 in the Mexican League and 297 in AAA, 30 home runs combined. So really, if he could get an opportunity at the big leagues, flash his bat and see what he can provide for the Padres moving forward.
Yep, that's my guy as well. The thing that depends on is just Jason Hayward, who's a newcomer out in San Diego. He's old. He's 35. If Hayward, needs somebody to dispel him or, can't go all year, I think it's going to be Ornelas who gets a shot. And as you said, 297 with 23 homers in AAA last year. He could be their long-term left fielder. And I have to say this also, I'm really loving the growth of Major League Baseball out of Mexico. We have not seen a ton of Mexican prospects. Most of the Latino prospects have come from other parts of the Latino world. But yeah, you've got another guy that similarly to like Isaac Paredes, who can kind of do it all.
Absolutely. Let's move on to first-time All-Star. I have Michael King in this spot. He'll be their opening day starter coming up in 2025. 13 and 9 last year, 2.95 ERA, and 201 strikeouts. Really needing a breakout campaign for their rotation to get going and earning that opening day starter nod is, a big step to getting an All-Star nod this season.
Did I miss? Oh my gosh. So I was prompted to question my pick when you said Michael King because I had Dylan Cease.
Sure.
And so it made me wonder if I was missing something, and I don't think I am. There's a lot of conversation about maybe the Yankees trading for him, but as of right now, he's still a Padre. Somehow, partially because he played, for a while for the White Sox, which hurts your stock a bit. He's never been an All-Star. He's got all the potential in the world to be an elite starting pitcher. And, to the credit of this team, most of their really good players have been all-stars already. So there's not a lot of guys that we have to choose from, including second-year center fielder Jackson Merrill. He was an all-star as a rookie. So I think we're very close and right on the money to pick guys out of their starting rotation.
Absolutely. So let's look at the San Francisco Giants. Another team that continues to have almost an up and down. They were really streaking towards, win a World Series, don't win a World Series, don't, win a World Series, up and down, and really trying to find their identity as they have gotten quite a bit younger. Trying to find and fit holes into their roster and plug in place and figure out, where their rotation is going to be led by. So very interesting team coming up. For their key rookie, I have Carson Weisenhunt. Has an above average changeup, needs to limit damage and to really find his way into the majors. As good as his command's been and the amount of pitches he has to use, has really been dinged up a little bit. So if he can find a way to limit the damage on the base paths and get some ground ball out, some double play balls, could really be a key rookie for these Giants.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I've got Wade Meckler. And when I initially looked at Wade, I was like, who's Wade Meckler? And there's just not a lot of guys to choose from on this team. They got a ton of young guys that are, have about a year or 2 years of service time. So they're not eligible. But, Wade hit 8 home runs in 44 games in AAA last year, hit 288. He's probably going to get some opportunities this year just because, the Giants always seem to have an outfielder who's hurt. So, we'll see what he does with them, but I think he's got an outside chance to at least be a contributor for them this year.
Yeah, I love that pick. We look on to the first-time All-Star for the Giants. I have Jordan Hicks. To be honest, Josh, I don't feel comfortable with anyone on this team looking up and down. It was really tough to find a first-time All-Star on this unit. If he can get command and limit damage, could be in the running, but don't feel comfortable with potential first-time All-Star coming out of the Giants this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of guys that are past All-Stars, but they don't have a lot of guys that are multi-time All-Stars. So, you've got like guys like Matt Chapman, Willie Adames coming into town this year, but they really have a lot of guys that are kind of that onesie twosie. My first thought, and of course I was wrong. I was like, I'm going to go with Heliot Ramos, but he was an All-Star in 2024. So I love Korean ball players for whatever reason. I just do. I think it's because as a Cleveland fan, we used to have Shin Soo Choo, and I just loved that guy. But Jung Hoo Lee was really highly touted coming into his rookie year last year and, cut short by injury. He could emerge as a real star this year as a center fielder in San Francisco. So I'm hopeful that it could be Jung Hoo Lee.
Yeah, I like the Korean what they bring is just that energy. The rituals that have come from Korean baseball. Definitely love them over in the MLB and what they contribute. So that's your NL West. A little prospect into my neck of the woods and a division that has been just completely dominated by the Dodgers, and expect nothing more as we enter 2025 this year. Moving on, last division in the NL and last division in our preseason look at key rookies and first-time All-Stars as we go team by team here. On to the Atlanta Braves. You look at key rookies, and this is another team projected to be an NL East winner. You're not going to see a lot of rookies that are making headway. I settled on Drake Baldwin. Travis d'Arnaud leads the way, and Drake Baldwin, a top prospect. That is, it just depends how he's able to handle that backup catcher role. We know that injuries happen, and being able to call a good game and then field your position and put some numbers up on the board. He'd be my key rookie for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I've got Drake Baldwin as well. And that, to your point, really not a lot of good options there, because of how established they are, of course. I'm looking, because when I picked Drake, I was like, and I was looking at Fangraphs, and I'm like, who's the other catcher? And of course, the other catcher should be Sean Murphy. And I didn't see him in there. So I'm just going to take a second here real quick.
Yeah, dive in. Would be curious if there's been any happenings in spring training, any injuries.
I don't see any news about Mr. Murphy being hurt, but I missed something. I mean, Drake Baldwin is expected to be a lineup regular at this point, so doesn't look like. I'm gonna just do a little quickie here with Sean Murphy.
Absolutely.
He's got to be hurt.
While you're looking into Sean Murphy, and that would make our Drake Baldwin pick even sexier right now.
Yeah, actually, Sean Murphy's been out since the last day of February with a cracked rib, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So Drake Baldwin is going to get his opportunity to start the season as the everyday catcher as a result of that, and we'll just see what he does with that. You never know. I mean, Sean Murphy has flashed as a superstar catcher, but I don't know that he's really proven that he deserves that amount of hype since coming over from the A's. So. And we'll see. I like Drake Baldwin. He's their number one prospect organizationally. He projects, like, from a WAR standpoint, as a replacement level player. But this is also a guy that I don't think a lot of people gave him a lot of chance or a lot of shot when he went to Missouri State in college, right? I mean, he wasn't even on the radar of anybody out of high school, really. And then before you know it, he's flashing and getting drafted. So, but he's hit 370 in spring training this year, 298 with 12 bombs in 72 games at AAA last year.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. That'll do.
That's pretty good for a guy that's doing some little research here on you're blocking the TV podcast. I'm excited to watch Drake Baldwin now. I might have to circle a couple Braves games early on.
Get after it. Well, that the Braves are going to be on TV.
Absolutely.
They will not. Their games will be available. So,
first-time All-Star for the Atlanta Braves. I'm looking at Michael Harris II. Last season, 264 average, 16 home runs, 48 RBIs, power bat. He's an above-average center fielder. Could definitely see him making that leap to get an All-Star nod.
Yeah, I'm a huge Michael Harris fan, and the crazy thing is that, I mean, he was NL Rookie of the Year in 2022. Got his real shot that year, in a year that he really wasn't even supposed to make a major league debut that year. And he comes in, and not only can he hit, but the guy can really go get it out in center field. but I'm going to flip our little model on its head, because usually I would be the guy that would pick Michael Harris to second because he's an outfielder. But I've got Spencer Schwellenbach. And this is way out on a limb. Former Cornhusker shortstop slash starting pitcher. I've just enjoyed watching him rise through the ranks. He's projecting as the number 3 in the rotation this year. So he's going to have his chance to really shine. And last year he was pretty good. Had an ERA under 4. So I think he could be the guy. But you know, the Braves have just an embarrassment of riches, as we say. They are. Yep. If they are healthy, if Ronald Acuna Jr. is back and in form, they're good. They're really good.
Oh yeah, fun team to watch. And y'all listening, we have full-time jobs as well. So you'd think we'd plan this to offset with a pitcher and a hitter? No. This is just, there's a lot of great talent out there. Baseball is going to be putting out continuing a great product. The pitching clock has made it so much more approachable. I feel like we could talk ad nauseum. I'm sure we'll talk about it during the season, Josh, in terms of just the purist standpoint and moving on to what the new age baseball is and quicker games. But yeah, would love to dive into that further and just talk more about, what has transpired and just the plethora of talent that we've been able to talk about over the last 2 weeks. Throwing that in because the next team we're talking about is the Miami Marlins, just another team that is going to be bottom of the barrel, beat up on. You look at key rookies for the Miami Marlins and you're just going, whose name do I want to bring up and give some tutelage to? Augustin Ramirez is the guy that I went with. Catchers were a complete disaster for the Marlins last year. It's really wide open for Ramirez to make a name. 270 and 125 plate appearances. He's going to start in AAA, but really at a team that's this poor, when you're on AAA, you're auditioning for the big league team. They're going to be putting players in and out of the lineup. They're going to be trying to find that guy that they can build a cornerstone around and a team around. So, looking at Augustin Ramirez to shore up the catching position for the Marlins.
Yeah, the Marlins are going to be that team that gives the Rockies a run for worst team in the National League. They just, they've got a lot to sort out. When you look at their position players in their lineup, I don't think they've got a guy that has more than 2 years of service time projected to start this year. So they're very young, very inexperienced. And we know that they have a tendency to bring guys up that probably aren't ready. My pick for that is no different. That's Davison De Los Santos. Almost certainly not quite ready for the big stage yet. He did get invited to spring camp, has already been optioned. But he's going to get his chance, I would say, sooner rather than later, just possibly out of necessity, because the Marlins are just, again, way too young and inexperienced, but he can absolutely crush the ball. He had 40 home runs across all levels in the minors last year while batting .294. Middle of the lineup kind of potential. But as we know, he's probably going to strike out 2 to 3 times he came when he gets up. So we'll see. But I'm going Davison De Los Santos.
Yeah, for a team like that, you're trying to put butts in the seats. So get those rookies mashing the ball up there. Maybe get the Savannah Bananas out to play an exhibition. Let's try and fill some stadiums.
Don't get embarrassed by the Savannah Bananas.
I'm telling they might put up some runs. They might play a traditional game and blow them out of the water, which interesting. First time All-Star, Miami Marlins, Yuri Perez. It's not going to happen this season. It's looking at first-time All-Stars, the Marlins are not going to put one of those on the list, but Yuri Perez, let's have a season.
Yeah, I think that they actually have a guy, and it's just because they're the Marlins that they might struggle to get somebody in there, but Xavier Edwards came up midway through the year last year out of necessity to play shortstop, and I just really love this guy. He didn't disappoint last year. If he can maintain the production offensively that he had in his 70 games in 2024, improves defensively, star. Only thing that he's not a big power hitter, but he's got good speed, steals bases, can hit for average. He hit over 300 in his first 70 games. So I think he is a future star, although it might not be in Miami. He might end up traded to the Dodgers in a couple seasons, and that's where he has to emerge. But I think he's a future star.
And that does it for our Miami Marlins takes for 2025. I hope that we gave you enough information
That'll
to
be the last we
be
talk about him. Yep.
dangerous out there at the water coolers. But if you want to stay in the who's who of MLB, you won't need to say their name too often. Let's go from the bottom to the top. Let's go to the amazing Mets. You look at this squad projected as an NL wild card, looking to make some noise in the playoffs again. A massive signing by the guy goes by the name Juan Soto. You look at their rookies. This is a team that you're probably not going to see too many rookies making a big name for themselves with the Mets. But I went ahead and went with Ronnie Mauricio, 248 average in 2023. He is coming back from ACL surgery. So it's going to be a full year off with that ACL tear, and will be closely watched as they ease him back into play. But with a 248 average, you're going to get some at-bats and another chance to show that you're healthy.
Yeah, Ronnie Mauricio, probably a better pick than mine yet again. I'm going to go way out on a limb. And this is just because of who his older brother is, but I'm going to go with Luis Angel Acuna. Just the amount of pressure he must be under as the little brother of Ronald Acuna. It's hard to know, but it's got to be tough for him. He has the potential to play a lot for the Mets this year, especially with Jeff McNeil being out for a bit to start the season. And again, this pick really just based on his family line. He's certainly an all-star or certainly a long shot to be an all-star like his brother. And time and time again, this is what we see, right? You see a Cal Ripken Jr. and you see a Ripken, another Ripken. Yeah. Billy Ripken, who's only famous really because he's on MLB TV and because he had a swear word on a baseball card once upon a time.
Well, hey, whatever it takes to get mainstream these days.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll go for it. First-time All-Star for the Mason Mets, Mark Vientos, third base, 266 average, 27 dingers, 71 RBIs. I put this mixture in a hot start and a big fan base. That's a perfect recipe to get you into the All-Star game.
Yeah, they love Mark Vientos there in New York. He's my pick too. With 27 homers and 266 average last year, can absolutely crush the ball. He's got a little work to round himself, out as a player, but obviously this is the everyday third baseman of the future for the Mets. And it's funny because if you look back a couple seasons ago when he first made his debut, it was like, well, we got to bring this guy up to fill in a hole and maybe nope, everyday guy. He's your dude, one of the stars of this team. And because he's going to get to play every day at third base, defensively, practice makes perfect. So if he can get to a point where he can be just a solid, maybe a net zero WAR defender, he's a superstar caliber player.
A lot of excitement out in New York. Will be cinema to continue to watch those Subway series and what goes on this year in New York. Moving on, Philadelphia Phillies. A team that has a lot of upside. Looking at the key rookie, I have Andrew Painter, 22-year-old righty, front of rotation upside. The Phillies, another team that'll be, battling and in the mix in the NL East as they continue throughout the season and going back and forth. Was tough to find a real true key rookie outside of Painter for me.
Yeah, he's the guy. Coming off Tommy John, so you never know what's going to happen, but he's definitely not going to be in the rotation to start the year. They're going to really start him off slow, but by the All-Star break, he could be in that rotation. You never know, and he's been their number one overall prospect, I think, for the last couple of years. They've really been looking for him to be their guy. So I think he's the easy pick, although he's got a lot to overcome.
always good to have another arm in the battery, and hopefully he can bounce back. As just 22 years old, you're just hoping that arm can hold up. First time All Star, I went with Brandon Marsh. First of all, have you seen that beard? Yeah, get him
Serious.
in the game.
Yeah, serious beard.
249 batting average, 16 homers, 60 RBs, ribbies. I want to watch him play baseball.
Yeah, I enjoy Brandon Marsh and the energy that he brings to the game. He's a good, solid defensive player. He's got good, solid speed. He's long. He can hit for power a little bit. He can hit, for an okay average. And he's a guy that he's going to be in your lineup regularly. And you need those guys that are going to be your, middle to bottom of the order guys that are in there every day. You really would rather have a guy that plays 150 games for you than have two or three guys that are going to platoon, and he fits the bill there.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's
I've got
get the beard in.
I've got a guy that is another probably long shot, and the guy that could stand to be the dude that Andrew Painter replaces in the rotation should he have his opportunity this year, and that's Jesus Luzardo. This is his third franchise as a pro. He's had some good times, especially 2022, 2023. His ERA was under 4 both of those years. He's projecting as the number 5 guy in their rotation, and it's a good rotation. Obviously, we know that. But I just think with the skill that he has, the pressure's not going to be on him to be a star. When he was in Miami, yeah, I mean they got Sandy and they've got some good starting pitchers there, but there was a lot higher expectations on him coming over from the A's, and I think he'll be able to dodge a little bit of that and just get back to being himself, and could emerge as the star that he's supposed to be this year.
Absolutely. Hey, last but not least, we've reached the end of the line. The last team to be examined, last team in the NL East, last team in the
Jeff,
NL.
this is for you, bud. This is for you.
Last team in Major League Baseball. We have the Washington Nationals. What expectations with a team like Washington are going to be down this year, really looking to build and see if they can take a step forward, see if they can maybe hang in the wild card race. I've seen them all over projected standings and power rankings, kind of been up and down the gamut in the middle to lower half of the power rankings here. But I'm looking at their key rookie being Dylan Cruz, made his MLB debut last season, really contributes in multiple areas. Needs that consistency at the plate, but really looking at him to have a lot of different areas that he can shore up to make an impression at the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean he's the easy pick, and he's my pick as well. He's going to end up being probably one of the top rookie of the year candidates in the National League this year. And at the minor league level last year, he hit 270. That just didn't translate to his first big league action. In spring training this year, though, he's hitting 306. It's interesting though because there's just a lot of mixed projections with this guy. Nobody seems to be able to pinpoint, will this guy be a great defender? Will this guy be able to hit at the big league level? Can he hit it? Can he hit enough? What can he really do? So a lot of question marks there for Dylan Cruz, but he's a highly touted prospect this year, and no question he's their top rookie of the year candidate.
Big upside and faith that he can make some steps, and that'll make him a well-rounded ball player. First-time All-Star for the Nationals, James Wood, left fielder. That 264, 9 home runs, 41 RBIs last year. He's been a power hitter this spring, has really been hitting the leather off the ball, and could see him making a quick start and having that spring translate into these early season games that can get him to the All-Star game.
He's another big outfielder. I think he's 6'7" as well, and he certainly is out of their position player stock. I would say he's the number one potential guy to break out this year. He's still very young. I think he's only 23. So yeah, I mean he's got sky's the limit for that guy. I'm going to go with Mackenzie Gore. He has only improved in his time in the big leagues, and he was a highly touted prospect for the Padres. Just kept getting hurt every year, just didn't make his debut, and then he finally comes up and he just gets absolutely shelled, and maybe didn't react very well. Maybe psychologically was impacted, but last year his first season under a 4 ERA. And again, he's only improved in his time in the big league. So I think that 3.9 for last year could be a stepping stone to something much lower for him. And he's going to lead that rotation. Obviously, he could be a future or an all-star this year.
I like it. I like it. That is your Washington Nationals. And that'll do it for the NL East and our recap of the top rookies to look out for, Rookie of the Year candidates, and potential first-time All-Stars for the NL here today. And Josh, 1 second. I do have breaking news. The Dodgers have clinched the NL West. They won't even be doing the season. They've decided that it's a waste of everyone's time, and the Rockies have been eliminated. So we have clinching here on March 17th. We're calling it.
I would say that is fair. But that's the fun thing about baseball for me, is that because it's such a long season, yes, they have less to overcome, even with the number of injuries that they're coming into the season with. It's fun to have that juggernaut to chase, and we've talked about the salary cap and the lack of one in Major League Baseball. Do we need one, etc.? But I just think it's fun to chase that team and potentially be the one that knocks them off. A successful baseball season for me isn't a season where my team wins the World Series. It's a season where the Yankees and the Dodgers both lose.
We didn't get that last year.
We did not get that last year. I'm hopeful that we will get it this year, but it's a tall order, I'll tell you.
Oh, you actually kind of warmed my heart there. You warmed my baseball cold, dark soul of being in Colorado, being like, I can root for other teams to go down and have it be a successful year. Let's round up our baseball.
That's why we play fantasy baseball. Fantasy baseball, you're never out until about halfway when you're out. But, it just depends.
Since the Rockies have already been eliminated, let's dive into standings and touch on that before we get in to NCAA March Madness tips and tricks to fill out your bracket. Again, if you're still listening, we certainly do appreciate it. We love hanging you around and giving you all this insight that you might not have the time to gather on your own. And as always, hit that little bell if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, give us some interaction. We'd love to start responding to you as well. But since this division's already short up, let's hop into the NL West. I mean, you just look at the Dodgers. I think it's a matter of how many wins they're going to put up is what you're really looking for. Are they going to have a 10-game gap between them and second place? And is another team in this division going to be able to capture the wild card? So, Josh, when you look at the NL West, is there any team that sticks out to you that could potentially compete with the Dodgers, or are you simply looking at a wild card entry?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? I mean, if the Dodgers have a slow start and a team like the Diamondbacks is just really red hot and just gets a lot of confidence. Confidence can go a long way. And if you can just hold on to that and the Dodgers start to question, their capability, then, you never know. But I would say that everybody is fighting for second place and a potential wild card spot out of that division. And, the Diamondbacks, though, they're the team that I like to root for out of that division, I would say. Between them and the Giants, probably. It's a waste of time to root for the Rockies. But I really like, guys like Corbin Carroll, and just that team has been, largely built from within. And, you got guys in the starting pitching rotation like Zach Gallen, he's just like kind of a professor of pitching. I'm a big Diamondbacks fan on that side.
I see the Diamondbacks prevailing behind the Dodgers as well. I think they have that postseason experience now. They have some veterans on that team that are going to keep them in line. Really, it's making sure that you go out to San Francisco and Colorado and take care of business, that you at least get series wins, or if not sweeps. And then, you go 500 against the Dodgers and make them earn it, against other teams that you're playing throughout the season. So in line there, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, 1-2 finish in the NL West. Moving up, looking at the NL Central, Fangraphs that I've pulled up has the Cubs projected to win the division at 84 and 78 on the year. Brewers close behind them, 81 and 81. Cardinals, Pirates, Reds, toss up. Are they going to be consistent enough to really put any pressure on those top two clubs, or are they going to fall to the wayside? I'm not quite too sure that I'm confident enough to throw my hat on the Cubs as being a NL Central winner though this year. What are your thoughts?
You know, yeah, when we were talking about the prospects in that division earlier in the show, I was just thinking to myself how much of a toss up that entire division is, because I just think and if you look at the standings, I mean it's very close. I mean that's like a dead heat, right? I think I think any one of those teams could emerge as a really really good team. Right now, of course, they're not projecting a wild card team to come out of there. I I think everybody's sleeping on the Reds. I mean, you got Tito Francona in town for the first time, maybe a healthy squad. They've actually got a really good um, crew of position players on that team and a pretty solid starting rotation. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if the Reds didn't win that division. But I think that they're going to finish better than last. I think they're picking the Reds last because of what has happened over the last, I don't know, decade. And they're picking the Pirates to finish with the same record, tied for last. I think for the same reason. I think both of those teams could surprise. The Cardinals always seem to find a way. They're sleeping on the Brewers again. I think that's a mistake. I don't know. I think that division is a huge toss up and is similar to the AL Central from last week, the toughest one to pick.
Yeah,
but
dog fight.
But the difference is not as good a division, right? We expect the AL Central probably to send 2 or 3 teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the NL Central is going to be a dogfight for that one spot, the top spot to make the playoffs. Like you said, I don't see the Reds finishing last. I can't see that youth and that athleticism being taken for granted. It's going to be who can reel off one of those 10 gamers, and then followed up with a couple losses and another 10 gamer. Having those blocks of 10 games being 6-4, 7-3, you're going to put yourself in a really good spot throughout the season. So whoever can do that the most, be a fun division to watch. And then we move into the NL East. Fangraphs has the Braves projected as your NL East division champion. 93 wins for the Braves. The Phillies in second at 87 wins. The Mets in third at 86 wins. And then the Nationals and the Marlins. A 3-team race that I feel is really going to go down to the wire. It's going to be one of those divisions where health is going to play a big factor. How Soto and the Mets rally around just massive expectations in the New York just battleground that is the media that can just eat you up or lift you up. So it really depends on how the Mets can stay afloat and manage big expectations, and then you just have those perennial players in the Braves and now the Phillies, rebounding. And man, what a gauntlet of a division.
Yeah, they're tough again. I mean, they are, right up there with the AL East as well. It's a competitive division. It's going to send multiple teams to the playoffs, no question. Will it be, 2 or 3? I don't know for sure. A lot can change, but I think projecting Braves, Phillies, Mets is probably reasonable at this point. Nationals, I would say, are not a wild card team, but they are a wild card for me. They have a lot of young talent. They could, potentially get back to being competitive. But the Marlins are going to be bad. The Rockies are going to be bad. I think it's easy to say that they'll be, first and second from the bottom of that league. And, if you look at the projections for the American League, there's really only one team over there that projects to potentially be in that realm. And of course, that's the White Sox. So it's going to be interesting. But, when we were talking about the American League last week, I felt like there was a lot more disagreement for me with Fangraphs projections. And,
Sure.
for the National League, I think, outside of the NL Central, which I don't disagree. I'll make this clear. I don't disagree that the Cubs, with them being projected at winning that division. And when you look at it, it's a tight division. They're projecting that. But across the board, that that league is pretty easy to project right now. I think as far as what teams should be in contention for a playoff spot and what ones probably won't be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You look at the Fangraphs for the NL, and you're hoping for some excitement, as opposed to the AL, where you're going to see some excitement. It's just lighter in terms of those teams that are at the bottom, and hope springs eternal, and we hope to have some discussions later on in the season about who's going to reign supreme, but the races in the NL seem definitely more top heavy than in the AL. But we're rounding the corner to opening day, and really excited to taking in some seventh inning stretches, getting the kids out to the ballpark, and seeing all the fun races as we continue. So that'll wrap it up for our Major League Baseball preview.
Yeah, now we're going to talk a little bit about some of that fun stuff about NCAA March Madness. So I don't know what you did, Alex, but for me, I wanted to look at just the last 10 tourneys, and
Okay.
I wanted to just run numbers just to basically say, look, if you're filling out your bracket and you're like, did I pick too many upsets? Did I not pick enough? Did I pick the wrong upsets? I can't figure out, I can't pick who I think's going to win at all. There are certain things that you can look at, and we've got a lot of that stuff here for you, that will at least steer you to putting together, even blindly, even if you just use these numbers, you should be able to put together a competitive bracket. I can't pick, which number one seed is going to win it all, but I can tell you that it's almost certainly going to be a number one seed. It almost always is. So, things like that are important to look at. But so here's some, and I'll just run down this first section of the stuff that
let's start it out for the parents that are nervous about filling this out. If you're worried about looking silly in a bracket, you have a 1 in 9.2 quintillion chance of a perfect bracket. The same odds as winning the lottery twice in the same week. So there is no right or wrong answer when it comes to bracket filling out.
Right.
If you want to win the tournament, give the bracket to your youngest child and have them circle teams, and you'll probably win whatever group you're in.
You might. I mean, you certainly have a shot. So what I actually did was I went through the previous 10 March Madness brackets, and I added up the total seeding for the round of 32. And the number that I came to was it's gonna range, or it has ranged between 170 and 215 in total seeding, and it's most likely to be 179 to 210, and the average is 193. And 5 out of those 10 in the 190s was where it's at. Okay. So if you fill out your bracket and you're like, is this realistic? You should add up all of the seeding numbers for your round of 32 projection. And if it is in the 190s, you're probably going to be pretty close, at least as far as how crazy your picks are. But there's more that goes into it. So we've added up the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, the Final 4. Something interesting to know about the Elite 8, it's not all that common that you're going to have, in fact, it's never happens that you're going to have all like a perfect Elite 8. You're not going to have a 1-2 matchup in every regional for the Elite 8. It's not going to happen. The most that we've seen in the last 10 years is 2 out of those 4 matchups being a number 1 versus a number 2.
Wow.
So the upsets are going to happen at some point. The interesting thing for me is that it seems like even when let's look at these first round numbers. So only twice in the last 10 years and twice ever has a number 16 beat a number 1. 4 times in the last 10 tourneys, a 15 has beaten a 2. 6 times a 14 has beaten a 3. 8, a 13 over a 4. 14, a 12 over 5. 22 times an 11 over 6. We talked about that earlier in the show. That's the most likely upset to happen. 14 times a 10 over 7, 21 times a 9 over 8 in the last 10 tourneys. But the breakdown has also been, I mean, there have been times where you've seen 3 out of 4 of the 9s beat the 8s. You've never seen 4 out of. You've seen, 2 or 3 out of 4 of the 10s beat the 7s. You've never seen 4 out of 4. So things like that, you just want to look at. Don't be unrealistic. Don't say, I'm going to take the 16s to beat the 1s. If you take a 16 to beat a 1, no, it's a long shot. It has technically happened. It's unlikely.
1.2% chance.
Don't pick 2 of them. Because guess what? What we know is that in those 10 tourneys, those previous 10 tourneys, the number one seed has won the championship 7 out of 10. So if you're going to go about eliminating number 1 seeds, the points increase the further in that you get. So if you don't have your number 1 seed that's going to be in the Final Four or in the championship left, then you're going to have a pretty hard chance of winning your bracket challenge.
Typically speaking, if you can pick a Final Four, you probably have really good odds of winning your bracket.
You got a really good shot. Yep. But when you look at Final Four, if you look at the sum of the Final Four, and keep in mind, it could be as low as 4. Because you could have 4 number 1s. In the last decade of tourneys, so not technically the last decade because there was no 2020 tournament, but the lowest that number has been was 10. So we've never had all 4 number 1 seeds. So that's another thing. If you pick all 4 number 1 seeds, I mean, you're almost certainly not going to be right about your Final Four. And that number has gone up as high as 23.
Okay. Which still goes to show you that a double-digit team has a high unlikelihood of making that Final Four.
We've seen it. We have seen it. But if you're like, I'm going to take this 16 seed, I think they're going to go on a run, it's not going to happen. They might win their first game. Probably not, but they might. They're not going to get past maybe the round of 32.
Hey, Josh, I love the adding up. I think it's awesome. I'm gonna throw that into some of my brackets tonight to make sure that the numbers add up. But I'm gonna throw that I have the champion already for you and for the listeners and viewers at home. The last 20 champions, the last 20, it's a long time, were in the top 12 of the AP poll in week 6. So all you got to do is go back to the week 6 AP poll this year, look at the top 12. I just gave you all a 1 in 12 chance of picking the winner. This season, Alabama, Auburn, Duke, Florida, Iowa State, Kansas, Kentucky, Marquette, Purdue, Tennessee. There you go. So I've got your winner picked out for you.
All of those teams are at worst the 4 seed, if I recall.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, they're all up there.
Yep.
So already primed to make that run based off of statistics alone. A 5 seed has never won the tournament. So go ahead and eliminate all your 5 seeds. And no team west of Texas has won since 97. So there's 13 teams this year that are west of Texas that you can wipe off your board. Something that you need to add to your board, a double-digit seed has made the Sweet 16 in every tournament since 2007. So go ahead and take a quick look. But on top of the adding of all the seeds together and making sure that you're in line, the number 1 ranking system that you can look at to help you tie break a potential matchup that you can't make a decision on, take a look at the KenPom rankings. Those rankings are going to be your number 1 go-to for deciding a winner and a loser. That's going to be your accuracy, your North Star. If you can't decide between that, the 8-9 matchup and the 1's playing the 9, if a 1 plays a 2 in your bracket, who am I going to go with? Do I want the upset? Take a look at those KenPom rankings, and I think you'll be surprised. And a lot of times I say that because a lot of people just look at the rankings and they're looking at 11 versus 6. There's a 12-5 matchup coming up on Friday. Colorado State is the 12 seed. Memphis is the 5 seed. Colorado State's a 2.5 point favorite as a 12 seed. So there are mistakes made in the seeding. How UNC made the tournament, I have no idea. And how certain teams are placed, I give them all the credit. It's a tough job. I get it. But don't certainly rely on, oh, 12 is so much bigger than 5. It's not. These teams have run the gauntlet, and you really need to take a bigger look at the bracket and make those decisions and just know that there's no right or wrong.
Well, and the other thing, and this is to me is interesting to look at, right? When you look at percentages, so let's talk about the first round, which is really, I mean, let's be honest, that's where the amateur bracketologists get excited. It's the round of 64, right? Regardless of what happens in the round of 64, still 7 out of 10 times a number one team has won in the last 10 tournaments.
Right.
So in the lowest number of upsets, the lowest percentage was 15.6% of first round games were upsets. That ranges all the way up to 40.6. But regardless, even in the 40.6 season, the winner was a number one seed.
Right.
So it didn't matter. Didn't matter a whole lot. So here's some stuff that and this is like interlock rules, right? So things that you should not do. So know that only 1 out of the last 10 tourneys was there 0, 16, 15, 14, or 13 teams that had at least one win. So it's not likely that we won't see any of those upsets. It has happened. Super boring national tournament, but it has happened. Most likely, especially in the last 5 seasons, there's been a higher percentage of upsets. You've been looking at more like 1 in 3 games have been upsets over the last 10 or over the last 5 tourneys. So know that. Only 2 out of the last 10 tourneys where no 16, 15, or 14 won at least one game. So it's also unlikely. It's likely that there's going to be 1 to 2 of those 13 through 16 teams, as many as maybe 4 or 5, that are going to win a game in the first round. So if you're like, I'm just going to go clean across the board, I'm just going to pick the favorites in every game, that's also going to hurt you. You've got to pick some upsets. You just can't pick too many. That's where I usually get myself into trouble. I'm excited because I picked this upset, well, but I also picked these other 5 that didn't happen. So it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Only 1 out of the last 10 tourneys where a number 14 beat a number 3 more than one time.
Okay.
So if you're like, I'm going to pick 2 14s to win over a 3, probably not likely.
It gets hard when you have those 12-13 matchups and you start dragging the 13 farther and you're just like, they're hot. Like, they won 3 in a row.
Are you kidding me? I'm picking Yale. Only 2 out of the last 10 tourneys where a 13 beat a 4 more than once. So also not super likely. So if you were going to go across the board and you were going to try to craft that perfect bracket, I would suggest that you pick maybe 2 to 3 at most of that 13 through 16 upset in the first round. If you do more than that, you're going to hurt yourself and you're potentially going to eliminate a champion. There's never been more than 1 15 seed win in the last 10 tourneys. Number 12 has beaten number 5 at least twice in 5 of the last 10 tourneys and 3 times in 2 of those. So if you are leaning toward upsets to just go heavy on, it's the 12s and the 11s. Number 12 has only been shut out in 3 of the last 10 tourneys. So 3 times out of 10, no number 12s won. So know that is a higher probability of happening. 0 of the last 10 tourneys where 11 got shut out. So that's the one. And only 2 where they won less than twice. So if you were going for an upset to really lean on, it's the 11 over 6. Over the 10 over 7, over the 9 over 8.
I love
so
it.
when you look at things like this and then you go back to those numbers, it can just kind of keep you narrowly focused. So that, I mean, it's still not a guarantee. It doesn't improve your odds from like a bazillion to 1 to like really good, but all you're trying to do is just shave your chances down a bit, and you can do that.
Have fun. Don't let it stress you out. Start having your kids pick colors, unicorns, different ways of finding the bracket. Find those guardrails. Maybe get a little bit more serious on the $20 a bracket pools that you're in. And have fun with it. It's March Madness. I know a little fun fact about March Madness that doesn't have anything to do with March Madness or basketball, other than guys that like to sit down and watch. But today is the number one day for the old snip snip on the male side. So for all the guys sitting on the couch this week, enjoy the time off. We really hope that the kids aren't blocking the TV, because you're not going to want to get up to move them. So enjoy the madness of the next weekend, the first 4 games firing up tomorrow, and getting ready for just a crazy weekend of basketball.
And I will also say, just because all of these numbers that I'm spitting out at you are like probably super boring and feels like you're listening to a boring boss drone on about TPS reports at work. But I will go ahead and also post these in the comments section, just so you can refer back to them if you actually want to use these guardrails.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll throw them on the Facebook page as well. So definitely looking to spread our wings and meet you where you want to be met using your various social media. Have really appreciated the support so far, and just want to continue bringing sports knowledge throughout the weeks that you can listen to, soak up, and spread at the water cooler and around with friends and family.
That said, I think it is probably a good idea for us to go ahead and host our own, probably on ESPN Tourney Challenge, our own bracket challenge that you can access through our Facebook page at You're Blocking the TV. What do you think of that?
Yeah, we'll have that fired up after this gets, it'll probably be up by the time this has been processed on YouTube and online. We'll have that group. It'll be an open group for, actually want to keep it to You're Blocking the TV. So we'll put the password just in our Facebook page and try and keep it, locked in and see who followed our sage advice with all the adding and subtracting that Josh walked us through.
Sounds good. Oh man. All right. Well, this has been just as long as last week. Huge surprise there. We obviously, as our wives probably would tell you, love to talk, especially about sports. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for tuning in again. I know that things are a little bit, we're not a finished product yet, but we're working on it. We're trying to bring you guys something that you appreciate and that you enjoy. So anyway, as Alex said, like and subscribe on our YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at You're Blocking the TV. Thanks everybody for checking us out today, and we'll see you.